Okay, Nick, it's up. So your question is,
My question is, I guess what can be said about dreams as far as like, I guess, do how are they intertwined with like sankaras and how does the suffering within dreams relate to uh, waking life? Because sometimes I will have very stressful dreams, but be doing really well, and during the daytime,
I'm sorry, what was that last?
um, sometimes I'll have very stressful dreams and wake up, so in somewhat of a hell state. But during the daytime, everything's good and practice is going great. So I'll like come out of sleep, like with a stressful dream that I'll quickly forget about. But in the during waking hours, I don't really see any evidence of that dream.
Okay. Um, for for many, 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 many decades now, psychology has, following Freud's lead, um, said that there's two aspects of dreams in this regard. One is that dreams is what the mind does in a thinking state, but that the body is asleep and much of the parts of the mind are asleep, but there's still a part of the mind that is awake, that is doing problem solving, and that the problem that's being solved is something that's either associated with what happened during the day, or it can be something that's really, really deeply oriented. And the second part is that these dreams may have some interpretation to them, so that by talking about a particular dream, that we can find out what the underlying cause was. And so this is the way that psychology does it. You could also, just like psychology does things like psychological archaeology, like having the people go back into their childhood to find out things, and the guy comes in and says, "Oh, now I know. The reason that I'm an asshole is because my mommy gave me a spanking when I was 4 years old." And so they wind up blaming it on her, and that's the discussion. But they don't go a little bit deeper into that to recognize maybe mommy gave that kid a spanking because he was already an asshole. And that's why he got the spanking. But the point then is that dream interpretation almost always has some advantage, but that advantage is maybe not so grand or so great, and that there's normally various themes that dreams follow. One kind of dream that people have will almost always have some sort of very, very large building that they are in, and that almost all of the dream has to do with how to get out of this building. Sometimes the building is on fire, or that the stairwell doesn't work, or the elevators don't work, or things like this. And that Freud interprets that large, large building as the individual's concept of authority, or the authority figures. Oh, no, and if you extrapolate that, you can actually see that that large building that we're trapped in is actually society itself. And that's one of the traps that the Buddha talks about is that don't go by this, that, and the other thing. Don't go by tradition or anything that you've heard or any teachers and all of that kind of stuff that's listed in the Kalama Sutta. But it really fits in strongly now to the point of Silabata Paramasa, or the individual's attachments to rites, rules, and rituals. And in that regard, that dream state, the guy cannot get out of the dream, get out of the building, simply because he's still attached to being in the building so desperately he wants out of it. All right. So there's several things that we can do with dreams from a Buddhist perspective. One of the things that we can do with dreams about Buddhist perspective is you just forget about them. They're nothing. They have no value.
Right.
They have no need for any interpretation like I gave you one. Or the other one would be a flying dream, which is a request for freedom, and these kinds of things that can be interpreted into the dreams. But rather that the dreams themselves are not important, but the quality of dreaming needs to be looked at. Mm-hmm. Not the content of individual dream, but the whole quality of what dreaming is. Because you know that we have the association. In fact, they talk about it in school when the kid is not paying attention. He's what? Daydreaming. All right, so the Buddha has this statement about it, that kind of mind, the ordinary mind, burns by day and smolders by night.
Right.
All right. So basically, the kind of thinking and stuff that happens in dreams is generally symbolic, like the big building that we're trapped in. But that's the issue that we're dealing with in dreams is almost always the issues that we have to deal with in ordinary life anyway. And that there's various things that can be done about dreaming, but we want to make sure that we understand that there's a huge connection between daydreaming and night dreaming. And that in fact, the whole quality of the teaching of the Buddha is to actually stop daydreaming. Right. Now, daydreaming, what is daydreaming? That would be what I would call at least one of the hindrances, if not several of them, depending upon the way of looking at it. But daydreaming would be a hindrance for being in the here now. One of the ways of looking at that is to be in the here now means that we need to be in our sensual awareness. We experience the here now through our abilities to experience, and those experiences have to do with the senses. Sense of touch, the sense of feel, the sense of seeing, and sound and touch and taste and all of those kind of senses, to where daydreaming is a different kind of touch that's all mental. That's why the Buddha talks about it, in fact, that there are six senses. And one of those six senses is basically the wandering mind. And so when we are here now, that means that we're coming out of that daydreaming and coming into the present moment. And so we're going to only allow wholesome thoughts in the mind if we have the ability to decide what we're going to have in the mind. And that this would be anapanasati, and we've talked about it, but we can talk a whole lot more about it in that regard of getting oneself in a state of satisfaction. And that state of satisfaction that I'm talking about is a satisfaction that is associated with the first jhana. Because this satisfaction that we're talking about is actually one of the jhana factors. Sukha, to become completely satisfied with how things are right now. And when we are completely satisfied with how things are right now, we do not want to have hindrances or daydreams come into mind that are going to pull us out of that state of satisfaction. So we will choose that state of satisfaction over whatever thoughts we're having. And so we maintain and begin to have control over that. Well, now we begin to look at it from a different perspective, because the Buddha talks about all four postures. Now, I know that the Burmese have taken what we call walking meditation into an abstract world of very, very slow movements and all of that. But another way of looking at walking meditation is that that's what should be all of your walking. Should be a meditation in the regard that you are mindfully walking, that you know the body is moving, you know the steps that you're taking, you know the direction that the body is heading, and you're aware of it, and you're also aware of the intention of where you're going and why you're going there. And so that's a much more complete walking meditation than simply the various steps of lifting, untouching, moving, setting, resting, the kind of stuff. I mean, that's just really way too much to do. And only in settings of the monastery would you walk like that. In real life, you've got better things to do with your walking, but you can still make it a walking meditation. The same thing with sitting meditations, whether you're sitting in a chair or sitting on the floor or whatever like that, being aware of the body, etc., and being in the here now is all the way to go. The one that people spend the least amount of time with is standing meditation, because we almost in our society very rarely stand. One of the ways that I've noticed the standing meditation is when in fact, the most key point would be when I would want to talk to Achan Po, and there are other people talking to him. And so the right thing to do is to do a standing meditation, just stand there. And part of the standing meditation is non-movement. But you see people standing in line for tickets or for Apple stores to open or what other things like that, and or standing in line for voting. And the standing people that are doing is frustrating, difficult to endure. The body is not used to standing, and therefore it's getting tired. Their postures are all over the place. You can see the agitation and the milling about, even though their feet are standing because they don't want to lose their place in line. Everything else about them is agitated. So this is a perfect time to practice standing meditation. Whenever you've got to stand, then just to stand in the sense of stopping all of the body movements, stopping the hands, and just seeing how you can do this. Now, here's an important point about that. If we stand in a way of holding the body still, then that will create tension. An example would be that if I try to hold my hand still, you can begin to see that the fingers there are beginning to wiggle. This one is wiggling. I can feel this one. This one's also wiggling. The reason for it is because I'm working at holding it still, and therefore it won't remain still. Isn't that interesting? In fact, it's creating a lot of tension in the hand. So let me relax it now. Shake that tension out. And now I can hold the hand still, completely still, because I'm holding it relaxed. Well, that relaxation is not what the people are doing when they're standing in line, because they want to get out of that line. They don't like that, and so they don't know how to stand relaxed. So now we've covered that posture. Let's cover the one that you called about, and that is the reclining posture, that posture that we're in when we go to sleep. The Buddha also has a lot to say about that reclining posture. One of them is, in fact, we use it in the word, the lion pose. And there that word lion is again. Now we're talking about lion, not lying down, but lion, L-I-O-N, the lion, the strength of the Buddha, and that there is an actual posture that lions take. Now, actually, I've seen dogs take that same posture. Dogs got a lot of postures, but lions do too. In fact, the Sphinx looks like a lion's posture, but it's not. That's an alert posture. No, the lying posture is down on one side where the arms, the legs are folded, and you see dogs in that posture too. But we don't want to call it the dog posture. We call it the lion posture. So we can get the point that when you lie down like that, you're lying down as a lion, the one who is in charge. And in this regard, this time, one who is in charge of the mindless wandering that the mind does while it's trying to rest. This is what we were calling dreaming. So when you lie down at night, there's a few things to do before you go to sleep. And in fact, if you do these things well, then you will go into sleep. And what are these things that we're going to do? Well, we're going to be doing a kind of specialized version of Anapanasati. And so the first thing that we can say is, it's really nice to lay in bed here. No place to go and nothing to do. And I'll fall asleep and everything will take care of itself. There's nothing to do. Now, if we can't come with that attitude, you see, most people come to sleep, going to bed with the attitude that I'm tired and I got to get up in the morning because I've got work to do and I've got this, that, and the other to do. And so they go to sleep not with a mind that's restful. They go to sleep with a mind that's in turbulence, especially with that thought, I've got to go to sleep. Now, the people who call or talk to me about this, some talk about dreaming as you're talking about, but many people will talk about, I can't sleep and I've got to get to sleep. Well, your attitude about got to get to sleep is what's keeping you from being asleep. But when you snuggle up with that sheet or the blanket, oh, this is so nice. Oh, it's so comfortable. Oh, I like this. And nowhere to go and nothing to do, and I can just lay here and enjoy the night. Just lay here and enjoy the night and put ourselves into that restful kind of state, this happy, joyful, and satisfied, and just maintain that state of happy, joyful, satisfied as sleep comes. And when disturbing thoughts come, we can tell ourselves again, never mind, just satisfied the night away. And as we go to sleep, that will help the mind very much into going in the various stages. Now let's talk about the stages. One would be way up on top, full awake, full alert. This is the place that I would expect you to be, and this is the space that I've gotten into the habit of being. The next step down is the state of daydreaming, of when we're in hindrance. The mind is just wandering around. The next state would be what we would call light sleep, to where not only is the mind wandering around, but that we're not even aware of the mind wandering around. And then there is a medium sleep where the dream state starts. This is what's called REM. Why is that? Because REM means rapid eye movements, and this is where the doctors have done it. They've put people into special rooms and watched them sleep. Now, I tell you, you might, in fact, have a good night's sleep in a hotel, but most people, when they go to sleep, or to go to a place in a hospital to sleep, while they know that they're being hooked up with a lot of equipment and got doctors monitoring them, that's probably not going to be a very restful sleep anyway. So what doctors actually do is they bastardize their own data simply with their observation. That eventually will be able to do it with very, very unobtrusive devices that are so cheap that people can have them in their homes and monitor their own sleep in a natural state. But right now, the doctors, they're really, really crazy about it, and so they wind up getting people in these states of sleep called REM, where the mind is so active while in their state of sleep that the eyes are moving. But not always does the eyes have to move when the person is in a dream state. There are other things that happen, and the EKGs can show that there is a deep, deep sleep that happens when all of the mind is basically shut down, and it goes to, I think they call the alpha waves or something like that. Well, that's actually similar to states of jhana that can be reached. One of the differences, though, is that the jhana can be immediately broken out of. But what happens with people who are in a deep state of sleep? When something disturbs them, they will actually take that disturbance and incorporate it into whatever dreams that they're having, or it'll wake them up into a dream state. So they go from deep sleep, and then a disturbance, a loud noise, a siren, the dog farts, something like that will happen, and that will pull them out, but not all the way awake. But it'll pull them into a dream state, and they'll have a dream about the disturbance. By the way, that also does not have to be a noise or a flash of a light or the part of a dog or other things like that. It can actually come out of our own mind as a sankara, a fear. People will they'll have a dream and they'll wake up in a panic. Why are they waking up in a panic? One of the guys that I was working with on this he was one of them that had one of these large buildings. And so in the dream, the first thing that we wanted to do with it is to become familiar with the large building. In other words, he's beginning now to become a lion and starting to control the dreams, rather than having the dreams that got started in fear and then built a whole lot of turmoil that got the fear going to the point that they wake up literally in cold sweats. Now, people who have these kind of dreams often are associated with the situation, say, in the military with post-traumatic stress disorder. Look at that word, post-traumatic stress. And it's becoming a disorder. But the most important quality is that the trauma is gone. It's post-traumatic. But the stress still comes, sometimes to the point of it being a disorder. And so it will be military people. And the things that happens mostly that's so weird is that this often happens as they wake up. An example would be that Billy just came home from Afghanistan, and he's sleeping comfortably. He's been home for about a couple of weeks. And then his young son, who he's been away from all of this time, jumps on him while he's in a sleep. You know, he jumps on Daddy. Oh, I'm so happy to see Daddy. And he jumps on him to play a game. What does Daddy do here? He grabs the kid by the throat, turns him over upside down, and is choking him to death. And the wife has to come get him out of that. You're killing your child. What are you doing? That's when he starts to head for the VA. It's time for him to go check out this stuff. Okay? So you can see that guy that woke up in the cold sweats, and that's in fact what happens mostly when people have the post-traumatic stress disorder. They're in a dream, and that the dream is stressful. And so we haven't even talked about your dreams yet, but I assume that you would think that when you wake up, you would wake up in a state of stress. But then that stress runs away, but that stress is not strong enough for you to wake up in a cold sweat, in a panic, with the heart racing. Nor do you wake up in the process of doing martial arts on somebody just because they woke you up. So your stress is not that strong. Congratulate yourself that you're not really over the hill, but that you do have that quality that there are dreams that you can come. So the point that we're going to work with as you go to sleep is mindfully thinking about that you will probably have a dream, and if you do, you want to know that you're having that dream. And there's a lot of different things that you can do about it depending upon how successful you are at this. One of them will be, if I catch myself dreaming, I'm going to wake up. Another one would be, if I find myself in a dream, I can begin to take control of it. But whatever it is that we're actually now talking about sati while we're in a dream. we're actually going to be practicing anapanasati even while we're asleep. Now, here's one of the ways that we can do that. Remember back to the lion's posture. Part of the process is that we're going to have the determination, and eventually it will become a strong determination, that I'm going to lie down and go to sleep in the lion's posture, knowing that the body, while it's asleep, is going to toss and turn, but I'm going to put it back into the lion's posture whenever I recognize that the body has moved by itself out of the lion's posture. Now, notice that that's a completely different way of thinking than saying, I'm going to sleep tonight and I'm going to sleep and stay in the lion's posture. You can't do that. But what you can do is have enough mindfulness and wakefulness during the night to at least recognize that the body has shifted posture, and then move yourself back into the lion's pose. And by the way, all you have to do is just Google this, and there's hundreds and hundreds of illustrations on Google of the lion's pose. So you can do lion's pose, Buddha, reclining Buddha, all kinds of different ones. Now, one of the qualities that's described in the suttas that you do not see on all of them is that the knees are to be bent just a little bit. They can be bent a lot. In fact, they can be bent all the way up into what you would call the fetal posture. Or you can straighten them out so that the only thing that you have is a kind of a balancing issue when you're completely like that. But if you bend a little bit, then it's a whole lot easier to maintain your posture.
Yeah, maybe have like a pillow between your legs, or
you can have a pillow. You can use any device like that. In fact, the monks have a particular device that they carry around for that reason. It's called the Sangha. That's that big robe that you'll see when they're on parade. They've got the Sangha. What do they do with it at night? Well, you can use it as a pillow. You can use it as a bed sheet. You can recline like this. Normally, they use the robe that they wear as the bed sheet, and then they'll keep the Sangha folded up. A lot of monks will actually sit on the Sangha because that's how we get the wrinkles out of it. All of these beautiful Sanghatis that have no wrinkles in them, you think the monks have an iron? Yeah, they do. It's called an iron butt. So, back to the sleeping posture. This lion's posture, then, is going to be part of your practice. And that possibly the last thing that you do in the morning when you wake up, actually waking up, is to return to the lion's posture. Remember that that's your thing, that you're going to sleep maintaining the lion's posture, and then you get out of bed. Now, I will be honest with you. This may take several months. This is one of the most difficult in the sense of how long does it take to manage it. To where things like small things like slowing down your hands in mindfulness hand movement meditations, mudras, or other hooks like remembering to get out of a chair and stand, that generally takes people about a week of unmindfulness, and then they'll remember, and then they'll remember. But for maintaining the sleeping posture, because you're actually asleep, it's hard to keep the body. I mean, the body operates really by itself. It really does. Or at least it's being operated by the part of the brain that doesn't go to sleep at all, and that's the reptilian part, the controlling mechanism. Because, I mean, if that part of the brain went to sleep, then you'd stop breathing. If that part of the brain stopped functioning, you'd stop having the heartbeat. If that part of the brain stopped, some of the automatic things that happen, like digestion of food and other things like that happen throughout the night with the body, you can recognize it. Well, we're not thinking about any of that stuff, but it happens. So there's got to be a deep part of the mind that's controlling and doing that kind of stuff. So that part of the brain is still awake. and that's why the body shifts postures often. So don't worry about the fact that every time that you recognize it or you look at it, it's not, oh, yes, I recognize that I'm in the lion's posture. Oh, no, you'll be recognizing I'm not in the lion's posture because that's an unfamiliar. But here's the thing that's actually quite surprising, and that is that the modern neuroscience has figured out that sleeping on one side is actually healthy and beneficial.
Really?
But if you look about it in the old days, when you see modern times, almost everybody, because of European cold weather, we go for a very comfortable bed. But Thai people, we generally don't. The mattresses here are generally quite firm. They go from firm, extra firm to, oh my God, why did I even buy this? I could slept on the floor. But sometimes, and we wound up with one, a mattress that's just too soft, nobody wants to sleep on it. But that's a very low quality. Normally the mattresses are very firm, very hard, or they're just pallets or mats that people sleep on throughout Thailand. So they're fairly used to hard surfaces anyway. But the monks, they intentionally kind of sleep on a hard surface out of respect for the Buddha, because the Buddha didn't have any bed to sleep on. And so they slept on a hard surface. Now that we're talking about a hard surface, if you sleep on a hard surface on your back, it's going to give you back problems. Your tailbone is going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable. If you sleep on your chest, it's going to be difficult to breathe. So for hard surfaces, the natural way of sleeping anyway is to sleep on your side. Never mind the fact that the heart pumps blood in a way such that if you're sleeping on your side, that the brain is better oxygenated than if you're sleeping on your back. That in fact, if you're sleeping on your back, the heart has to actually pump some stuff uphill. And so sleeping on the side, even if the head is elevated, makes sleeping a whole lot easier. So working and maintaining the posture for sleeping, maintaining the right attitude about the sleeping that you firmly implant before you go to sleep. It's almost like a little ritual. Oh, tonight, number one, I'm going to really enjoy this night. Number two, if any dreams come in, I'm going to start either controlling them or I'm going to wake myself up with those dreams. I'm not going to have the dreams run the night. The third one is that I'm going to maintain this posture, or not maintain it, but at least come back to it as often as I can recognize that I'm not in that posture. Now, what will happen with that is this is going to make your sleep very light, but light in a completely different way. It's actually, you're going to allow yourself to be in heavy sleep, very deep, heavy sleep that you can wake right out of. To where the normal mind is going from a state of sleep into a semi-sleep of dreaming that's hard to get people to wake out of, and then finally they come up. But by having these new qualities, we're going to be able to be in deep sleep and then come out, do something mindful, and then go right back down into it. And then come back again, so that when you hear a noise, you're going to actually wake up to that noise, figure out what it is, know that it's safe, and then go right back into a very deep state, as opposed to going into that middle ground of dreaming to where we're not quite awake, that not all of the brain is functioning yet. That in fact, you could go so far as to say, it looking like this from neuroscience, is that the reptilian brain really doesn't go to sleep. It's got a job to do. The mammalian brain, the brain that we use for verbal, logic, words, all of our language is stored in that area of the brain, and that is the part that does the dreaming. It's not fully asleep. But what we do know is sleep is because the frontal cortex has been shut down. Now, that frontal cortex can shut down when the child is sitting in classroom and the teacher's yelling at him, pay attention, to wake up, to stop daydreaming. So that frontal cortex shuts down, and one of the reasons that it does shut down is because of the need or the requirement for sleep. It's got to rest. But the other part of it is that when it's actually fully functioning, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of blood. It takes a lot of oxygen. That frontal cortex is the main thing that burns energy. That when a human being is sitting, almost all of the calories that he's burning while he's sitting there is coming from the top and around this part of the brain. And we know that because when people are out in the cold and they don't have much head cover, that's why they want to put a great big hat on, is because most of the body heat is lost from the head. Why is that? Because of that brain that uses so much energy.
Processor.
Yes, a processor, to where the reptilian brain is something more like an 8-bit processor or even a 4-bit processor, like they put in the cars when they first started doing electronic ignitions. Okay, it's not a very strong, powerful computer, so it doesn't take a lot of effort, and therefore it can stay going all the time. I can keep that heart beating, it's that kind of thing. But also, there is the memory base, that what's called the cerebellum, that has all of the stored emotions and all of that kind of stuff. That part is still active. That part is still there, and that's where the material comes from that the dreaming part of the mind, the language part, uses. And so that is that old stuff that's buried in the past that will bubble up symbolically in the dream that puts people in a bad state during the night. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting is that if you can learn to deal with this stuff in the dreaming state and start to managing it, it won't be, even though it may be so small as to be unrecognizable in your working day, still, by dealing with it at night, it'll get even less and less during the working day. Because we're in the active process of let us say, training or domestication of the reptilian brain. And I like that word domestication because what we're actually saying is, down boy, you're already at home. There's no dangers here. There is no danger. That this is a good place to sleep. I'm comfortable here. I'm safe, I'm secure, no place to go, nobody wants anything from me, there is nothing to do. And so down, boy, down, 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 down. And that's how we begin to spend the night, is a restful night. Because the people who have insomnia, they also have a lot of dreams. So they never do get quite the rest that they need, even when they are sleeping. And now they're also in a panic before they go to bed because they've got to go to bed, and they wind up taking drugs and pills and things that really mess up the brain's chemistry. I mean, some of the pills that people take, they would be safer if they just merely took a hammer to the back of their head. Now I can sleep. So you haven't gotten that deep into it, but that whole idea of dreaming will come to an end when you recognize that dreaming is nothing but the hindrances of the mind that you have all day long anyway. It's just the mind just it's just the spinning mind. As you begin to meditate more also, you will actually, the sitting posture then and coming out of the hindrances will help your day, but you need to use throughout the day because that's when the stuff is happening. But this will also help in the night. That if you can clean out the hindrances in sitting meditation before you go to bed at night, then you're going to have far less hindrances that come in the form of dreams during the night. But also meditation, people like to do it in the morning is because by the morning's time comes, the dreaming is finished, the hindrances are at bay, and so now they can have a morning meditation, and they think that they're very successful because now they're completely free from hindrances. Without recognizing, oh no, all of this stuff is together. It works together. And in the past, everything that the human was doing was working against his night's sleep. Now you're coordinating everything together so that you're going even to sleep in a positive way, waking up in a positive way, practicing in a positive way, becoming a lion and no longer a victim, even while the lion is sleeping. Because the lion is lying in the lion pose. And he's not lying to himself anymore about it.
The lion don't lie.
Lions don't lie. There ain't no such thing as a lion. Lions roar. They say the truth, even if people don't like it. So this is the way to deal with dreams. And notice that I haven't even asked you, oh, well, what was the dream?
I don't even remember. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, the dream itself is not the issue. It's the dreaming that's the issue. And the dreaming that we're doing is dreaming, whether we're dreaming in the day or dreaming at night. The Buddha talks about it burning by day and smoldering by night. You know why it's smoldering? It's because we put the covers on. So, Nick, do you have any questions about this? Is this
no, it's good.
Sufficient?
That makes sense. Yeah, because it comes in waves. Like the last 2 weeks, I haven't been dreaming at all. Practice has been like pinnacle, perfect. But I know it all comes in waves, so I'm just trying to look at different ways to approach sleeping and dreams. But I like that as a practice. That's good, and I really enjoy sleeping on my side, so that shouldn't be too difficult.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish this call in, and we'll go off and do something else, or not, depending upon how far into it you are.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent, Nick. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye.